Yes. Good.
What time is the? Oh, right, yeah, makes sense. Because it's what the 10 minutes. And 10 minutes, right? So it's only going to be the comment to when
Welcome, and thank you for joining this investment outlook session on Kosovo. I can see a lot of people here in the room, and I know there's also a considerable online audience. My name is Jens Lundsgaard. I have the honor to represent Kosovo on the EBRD Board of Directors, as well as Denmark, Ireland, and Lithuania. And, you know, let's be clear, we know it all. All countries will have to go from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources. That's simply needed to fend off global climate change. But how do you really do that in a way that ensures a reliable energy system and affordable energy for all? In that respect, Kosovo is a remarkably interesting country case. Relative to the size of the country, Kosovo has the largest coal reserves on Earth. And also in absolute terms, it is among the largest coal reserves in Europe. By contrast, Kosovo never introduced any infrastructure for gas. So when preparing a strategy for Kosovo's green transition, you really have an interesting key question, which is, could it be possible to go straight from coal to renewable energy sources as the main part of your energy system without introducing gas as an intermediate step? What would that require in terms of planning and introduction of new advanced technologies? Today we will look into these questions with a view to understanding the investment opportunities. We will be helped by an excellent lineup of speakers, starting with Minister Moratti, Minister for Finance, Labor and Transport. Here in the room, we also have two good EBRD colleagues, Harry Boyd-Carpenter and Neil Taylor. Joining us online, we will be getting a very VIP person for this session, namely Kosovo's Minister for Economy and Energy, as well as two investors, Mr. Sager from the Millennium Challenge Corporation, and Dr. Cornelius, one of the most experienced private investors in renewable energy in Kosovo. You will be able to ask questions to them via Slido. And I don't know if you have that app on your devices, otherwise you should get it. It's a wonderful device. And you can, with the code of Slido, you can, which you should get in a second on the screen, you can ask questions while speakers are speaking. Maybe there's a little technical issue, but then we'll come back to you with the code. Please do ask questions, and as we go along, I can see them here, and we can bring them up and have reactions to them. But let's start by understanding Kosovo as a country, Europe's youngest country, with a population of about 2 million, and they are, on average, the youngest population in Europe. The government has been in office for a year with a program to build a solid, independent country, and that has been noticed by investors. When asked about perceptions of corruption, businesses have this year lifted their ranking of Kosovo by 17 positions out of the 180 countries that are surveyed by Transparency International. That is pretty well done, Mr. Moratti. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jens. Well, as you said, 17 places up or higher in the Corruption Perception Index, but that's not it. That's not all. We've also moved 17 places in the Reporters Without Borders, the Freedom House report. And many other reports present us in a more, so to say, positive light, considering the reforms we've undertaken and the fight that we want. We ran in 2 pillars, our program. We ran for justice and jobs, and we're trying to carry that over for the full mandate. We believe, and it has become the truth now, that for a country to be developed sustainably, you need democracy. So that's why we are also committed to democracy and to the country's development, because we believe that that is the only way to unlock the potential. As you've mentioned, we have a very large portion of our population that is young and talented. I mean, if you walk the streets of Pristina, for example, there is a very high chance that the person you stop to ask for direction will answer in either English or German. We have a very vibrant startup community. We are at that phase now where some of the entrepreneurs are exiting startups. So that is a very good news, because this way they will create liquidity to follow through with their next innovative idea, or maybe even become an angel investor. So it will create an ecosystem and spur innovation and growth in that sector. We as a government are quite committed for the reduction of the administrative burden. The population in Kosovo already is digital. We have the highest penetration of internet, among the highest in Europe, at 91% of the population has internet access. So the people have already moved forward. Now as a government, we need to follow the people and make all of the services digital and online. We already have done some as a country. You can do many of the government services, or pay your taxes, register a business, and do all of these online already. And as a new government, we've also made sure that, for example, most of the measures for the pandemic, during the pandemic that we've had, either to help the people or rearrange the way of life, were digital. So they were digital only, no paperwork at all. So all of these are the ingredients for a growing and healthy economy. I must say that last year was a very good year for us. Lending, for example, in the banking sector grew at 15%. And I must also point out that the non-performing loans level stands at somewhere around 2.4%. As for the economic growth, last year's GDP, the preliminary data, tell us that we've had a real growth of 10.53%. So it was quite impressive. This year, we foresee maybe slowing down a bit due to the war and inflation. However, we still see the trend continuing. We can see it for the first quarter. It is on a similar pattern. And that growth was driven mainly by exports, because it's the local companies trying to fill in the void created by these supply chain disruptions in the global level. And if you look also at the jobs numbers that have increased, the highest number of jobs added was in the manufacturing sector, actually. And all of these new developments, these new, so to say, economic activity, all require energy, electricity. And for us, as a country, as you said, with some of the highest reserves, I think we are 5th in the world for coal reserves. Very small country, but very large coal reserves. It is quite important to make this transition, and it's not like we have to do it because of any national security reason, like some countries do, to become energy independent, but we think and we are committed to the European values and to the decarbonization agenda. And that's why we foresee a full decarbonization despite being so reliant on coal. We, as a government, have already committed or are planning, even without having finalized the strategy, as Minister Izvanoli will now very soon tell us. We are working and finalizing our energy strategy, but even without having a final version, we've already committed about 5% of GDP in energy investments for the public sector only. And but, of course, to reach full decarbonization, the involvement of the private sector is important as well. And we as a government, we see it as our duty, as our responsibility to create the environment and the mechanisms so that we unlock this potential from the private sector as well. And for that, we are working on having, let's say, one of the largest, again, compared to the size of our country, one of the largest battery storage units, for which maybe Minister Izvanoli will add more to it. We also plan to have to convert or to start an auction-based model in order to get the private sector involved in investing in renewables. And we also will have potentially incentive schemes for businesses and households for them to convert to renewable energy and more efficient energy. So these are some of the things we are doing. And again, for us, it's quite important as a country that we don't do what is only necessary, but we do also what we side and which side of values we're in. So thank you.
Well, thank you indeed. Can we go to our next speaker panel? Sorry, technicians. Is she ready? So Okay, so let's get deeper into the topic of energy transition with the Minister for Economy, who is also responsible for the energy strategy that Kosovo's government may soon be releasing. Actually, the reason for the slight technical challenges here is that EBRD is so firmly based on a transatlantic cooperation that she is going to talk to us from Washington, where she is over discussing some of these things. So if she is there, very much welcome, Minister Rizvanoli. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, Jens, Minister Murate, and everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today remotely to discuss about our energy strategy and the investment opportunities that it represents. Can you hear me?
We hear you. We should also be seeing some slides.
All right, that's great then. So I'll be delivering a brief presentation on our energy strategy for 2022 to 2031. And then this will be followed by a presentation by Jonathan Seiger, who's here with me. Actually, I'm here with him in Washington, D.C., negotiating a compact with the Millennium Challenge Corporation of the United States. And Jonathan is representing MCC and will be sharing more about one of these projects that are key to enabling our energy transition. Can we see the presentation?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So I will start by giving you a brief idea of what the current state of the energy sector in Kosovo is and what our main challenges are. We rely quite heavily on electricity generation on two old coal-fired power plants, which means that there is lack of flexibility in the system. We have very limited contribution of renewable energy in Kosovo's energy mix. Right now, only 5% of our electricity consumption comes from renewable energy sources in the country, although in terms of final gross energy consumption, it is about 25%. However, this is mainly from wood that is burned during winter for heating in an inefficient manner and not necessarily as manner for climate and also local pollution. So this is something that also needs to change. And one of our other major challenges is that we have low energy efficiency in consumptions. Finally, we have high level of energy poverty, about 30%, although we have the lowest tariffs for electric energy in Europe, second to Ukraine, actually. All this makes it daunting challenge to integrate more renewable resources and to decarbonize the sector, which is actually one of the key goals of the energy strategy. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So in our energy strategy, for the first time, we are incorporating a carbon tax into the analysis, and we are aiming to decarbonize the sector by 2050 at the latest. In the meantime, we need to also make sure that we ensure security of supply for our customers, but also that we maintain affordability for consumers, which is, as I said, a major concern because we already have very low tariffs, but accompanied with high level of energy poverty. One of the areas that we need to further work on is to ensure regional market integration. We are also Here we have a good start in regional marketing rate integration with Albania, which will be strengthened further in the years to come, but also we aim to expand that to also other countries in the region, primarily North Macedonia, Greece, etc. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So in the new national strategy, 2022-2031, we are planning to leapfrog from lignite to renewable energy sources. This is going to be challenging. We are very aware of that. One of the reasons is that we have very limited water capacities in the country. So hydro is not really an option to rely on hydropower significantly for providing flexibility, which is why we want to resort to more innovative, groundbreaking ideas of building storage capacities in the country, which are currently lacking and which will enable the integration of significant renewable energy sources as we foresee in the energy strategy. Energy efficiency is another top priority. It doesn't sound as attractive as renewable energy development. However, it is one of the key areas which will enable us to limit the cost, but also environmental impact of producing our energy, as actually a lot of the energy that is currently produced and consumed in Kosovo is lost due to mainly due to lack of proper insulation in buildings, be it private, residential, or commercial buildings. So one of the key measures that will be undertaken here is to improve energy efficiency in existing buildings and public lighting. Relatively big programs in energy efficiency for public buildings, which will continue also in the next years. And we are already starting to pilot, actually have already started to pilot schemes for energy efficiency in the private sector, residential sector, also with the help of MCC, but a different project that will be finishing this year. And we aim to also strengthen our Kosovo Energy Efficiency Fund, which is a revolving fund, to in the future also provide services for residential and private sectors. Development of the energy service company as for market is another one of the objectives of the strategy, and also to this also the to renewable resources development also aim to have for in the they consume. Energy strategy, we see a very ambitious amount of energy sources. I'm saying renewable energy. I am thinking about when the solar PV I mentioned earlier, we have very limited natural resource. Also the next slide. So in the strategy, we'll be to reach over 100 megawatt capacity in solar by 20. This is roughly being equally being between wind and solar. Solar part, including also developing the prosumer sector. Year already planning kicking projects in tech, which is the corporation, main generator, nuclear owned, and producing from lignite. We diversify building megawatt solar also, which will be the one and the utility farm will have with KFWRD and EIB. We'll also be launching pilot solar at the end of by the end of which will be followed by other solar wind power auction the years to come. To these, to seriously because share of consumption in Kosovo by household 60%, and in the 60%, the share is actually energy consuming during winter. Heating with the winter, consumption, but also increasingly imports in the region. Of course, in the experience of the last, probably this years to come, it's not going to be any cheaper. Addressing this issue important from strategy stand, and we also be more active and trying to introduce energy sources in the sector, or let's already have renewable resources to put to an extent what can be done. However, I don't think this is for here. We are aiming to enough technologies, more and environmentally biomass heat. So we have kicking off first solar district heating plant for Soma of 70. Will be one of the solar power fixed things Europe. I move on to the right. The next slide. This is a picture to show you our favor Mr. Arisa. New vines and is smoke coming out kek lignite product, which I figurative very illustrates with the trend we are made that we forward with the link lignite renewables that moving into. Hopefully, you will be part of in this ways.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, and I'll be here to answer any that you may have.
Wonderful for staying with us, Spanoli. Give an idea of the 1,400 watts that was mentioned for solar generation in Taiwan is really at par current capacity from all. These are big numbers. Now, turning to Boyd-Carpenter, are now Managing Director of Climate Strategy, and you are an example of the caroused so you can from working those energy challenges, because that's actually what you lived in Christina's Harry. Plus, your reflect we just heard from this.
Thank you. It's quite a boost. But I say that yes, I was living in Kosovo 20 years, and it's still one of the times in my life. It's a remarkable country, remarkable people. I also remember really going around A and B, two of the most challenging power plants. And you have to visit these places to understand fully how significant of the challenge that not just cost, but frankly all face in different ways. And the way I think about it is unavoidable. We are all going to one of two enormous disruptions. Either we are uncontrolled, and we go over 1.5 to go over 2, and with impacts that none experience very can properly anticipate. You only have to look this week. Last week, it's in India, extraordinary temperatures there. Last year, we saw 48 degrees in Canada. what we can be is that this will be disruptive in very moment in fact to deal with waves. So that's the world expects sort of disruption. Second choice, we completely re-engineer economies and our energies, and often refer to this in numbers. 80 and 28. The 80 is cent of energy we get from hydrocarbons globally, in Kosovo because of the lignite resource. 0, where we need to get to 0 carbon, and 28 is left we have to do to keep with 1.5. That is a position that is unknown in history. So that's the thing. You either go through ordinary disruption or either extraordinary disruption. But the second disruption, it creates all sorts of issues. And if you start to think a world that looks like 0 carbon, you think of air, you think state prices, you think about energy prices. Now is that we really are forms of energy. High levels of energy. All sorts of ways in your environment and your economic opportunity change and for the better. So, no way of avoiding disruption. The question is which, and I think it's the second form of the second revolution you'll want. Fantastic to see that is really on board with that. If I take the minister said, it's very important for us efficiency, right? Neil more about exactly what in Kosovo, but what efficiency is and absolutely for us. The minister right is glamorous, every bit as important, more important than renewable. And so we all this time and again on not just deliver energy efficiency, but you create the markets to make people behave. The theme that was mentioned, and I think an area that you haven't talked about so much about electricity generation. Heating is an energy need, and again, it's great to see Kosovo working on key focus for EBRD, increasingly thinking about how to utilize heating. I'm getting the third renewable energy. We have very financed the wind farms in Kosovo. We're working closely with them. Renewable energy is such an important sector right now. You pose is, can we get all the way to renewable energy? So put another way, can we get to a low-carbon sector? That is, I don't know how it can be done. You may have seen California recently, 99% energy. What they did is that they managed 3 minutes. So it is enormously, and don't have all the energies that allow it. But the way of this is, it's like going in on a cloud. You are. And we're the top of the mountain. You can see the top of the mountain out of the clouds. See the sort of, then there's a thick layer of, you don't know how you're going to get, you don't know the roof, but you do know get to, and we know to, we have to get to some economies. Also know what a couple of 100 meters look. The next couple of 100 are really clear economies, especially, and it's about as much renewable as quickly as we can. There's an investment outlook. So what I would, this for investors, the idea is that is a growing destination is well positioned. Increasingly, it will be well integrated in the whole European, and in particular, with Albania. Excellent resources. We've proven that it can be financed and can be private investors. So I think we know where we have for the next 10 years. You have a clear mandate out by the minister, and urge all investors to head for Kosovo, head sector, but make first stop on your way to BRD resident of.
One. You can questions on this, and you should really get, because you're going to take part in a poll. And we are going about some very fancy, sounds like
you know, something on the moon is something that might be happening in Kosovo. Mr. Jager, you are this Millennium Generation, where you are senior operation advisor on a web project. Tell us more about it. If you are there, again, the transit. While him hetero code 91730. Have to go a bit down and Kosovo, because otherwise you're asking to another set, and we won't benefit from them. Have two good, but if you put very excellent, you can still make it. We have Mr. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You know, Marathi and Manoli, MCC, to identify the economics and to address strengths. The Kosovo has reliability of electricity. To address the strength, we identified alternatives in this constraint. So we were looking at gas, energy, power, gas supply, Kosovo, and last year, government decided that they would prefer to gas storage before address this constraint the system. And the first slide. Slide shows those compact lines that we're dealing with. We was selected in December 2018. We worked with the country develop alternatives and analysis of use to feasibility requirements. Those compact discussion between Kosovo and the U.S. Slide, please. Slide, please. In the studies and the government, we identified 4 applications for battery and storage systems to support network ability. The first is to provide frequency reserves, or FRR. These are fast to restore voltage balance the system, small and electric. And they are intended to be on for short periods. Item tertiaries, which are made dispatched, are also on an automatic basis. And these deal with longer duration balances and can support network and reaches further levelity, all in furtherance of relate to customers. Battery systems will be used to minimize cost of energy by storing low-cost energy and then deliver when there's demand typically complete by higher. And for that, after the fifth application here actually force the integration of renewable energy but provides when these intermittent supply affect itself. Fifth item is black start capability. The network return completely. There is a source that needs to start from the very beginning, and batteries find efficient system help regain operability in a short period. shows you a whole battery system. Is located, as you see pictured, at substation in the back, but systems are often located within generate. There's the supply generators and grid. You can see that those lithium batteries in this application, that's one technology, and that battery system in Kosovo will be in a few months, and these occupy 1 hectares. Next slide. MCC has a proposed to facilitate an investment sector through a part that he has the Development Corporation, other U.S. agency development, and this American facility development platform mingling DFC, MCC fund, and to optimize the collaborate specifically with our partner, in this case. We have $2 million proposed for this opportunity. This will eventually more support impact activity as involved. The focus EFD is strengthen the compact for a private sector investment alongside that to create subsequent projects mutually benefit. Next slide. ACFD is a dedicated funds for EFC to draw on eligible Kosovo that are ostensibly covered to the FD is a strategic brand, de-risk the projects that the private sector capitalize by the private. These are more global and need to be identified and structured during the need to be identified structured during the MCC program. Development not need completed a compact period, which is a MCC's programs that all programs included 5-year period of for use for ACF, all private sector battery storage eventually expand existing battery storage developed by MC packaging or scaling companies set to complementary energy delivery systems, utilizing investments for renewable and climate, and then relevant mutual interest. The potential finance tool ACFD direct grants to reduce of capital subsidies, fees, and cost guarantees and de-risk these projects in foreign exchange to mitigate dollar or euro in the more frontier. Very much, and I'll answer any of the questions.
Thank you, Mr. We will be running on and to poll. Many realize that the war in Ukraine has gone fairly. I don't know if folks in the room are ready. You should get a chance to express your view on whether the gas prices we are seeing should entice other countries, or Kosovo's example, to focus more on storage solutions. But I'm not getting there. Maybe I'd help you.
Well, I'm not hearing
but 10 we should we go bigger then, or what's your plan? Oh, I have time. Yeah, we'll have to give to Mr. Sager, and we will go on to a speaker. And you know, as fancy to this, the green decision also depends the practical on the ground. And Alga knows more than most people because 7 years back in 2050, co-founded Agora project leading to the creation earlier of 100 megawatt farm, are the largest renewable facility so far. Dr. Cornelius, you have been involved in all project phases, negotiations with the officials and findings for all the challenges along. Would you tell us a bit about reality? Is it a safe place? Dr. Cornelius. Joining us. You can still express on the whole.
Success in the northern part of it. Asked to answer whether it's a safe place to. I prepared some slides on transparency, which unfortunately I go to you here because there were some photographs processed. Let me give you an answer. The answer whether Kosovo is safe to invest is yes. And in order to make this clear, perhaps the most thing is we had 10 years of development. We had from governments to just live at least 3 in the most necessary instances, like, for example, the regulatory office. With 24 conditions to be fulfilled, the signing of facility agreement with EBRD. And the strongest conditions, as you know, these conditions are quite different on the other hand, we do this in Kosovo, and it made everything about, and it was actually just one of the important ingredients in our project. And still, all these difficulties, these workers, meantime, as we could stop. We could continue all this time, start our own measurements in 2016 of construction October 19. I'm reciting photographs. I had to remember myself such a long time. The signing of the agreement with Alien partner, Renewable, and that was one that was important, of course, from Germany mainly, and then we have Australian partner, thanks from Europe actually, NLB, Erste Bank, Ultra. And so we could immediately, we're almost ready in, or on the way to time construction 2021, and we finalized it into operating in the beginning of this year, in March 22, where we were visited by our minister, German Annalena Baerbock, together with Abin Kurti, we could, with Neil, of course, the EBRD, we could celebrate this. Now, if you like, because it was 4 or 5 minutes that this stood straight out, let me very briefly some learnings suggest or some challenge, in particular from the view of the government. The learning first. Discuss it because the background, if you slack of Kosovo and unfortunately not being able to attend the market. And I discussed it here around within our team and agree that important learning is Kosovo and Pristina, Mitrovica regionality, every single week to support her. And that was the case from day. And kind of wherever we go, we think that rule is prevailing. Whenever we confronted with some the difficulties at all, we are afraid to actually because of the law, something that is, makes for huge reason trust. And is actually rewarded. Whenever we had, we just did some acted, we applied for the next program, and that was always real. People in there at the government, everybody we spoke in Kosovo was very open and the feeling that what we're doing. And the last, they were open for international experience, how transfer, curious come there, they were open in absorbing the ideas that we brought into the country. Then come as to some, let's say, challenge or Harvard. I was preparing speech of we would like as next of development level of government or of course the next phase. Now we were profiting sports scheme was in that originally for 100 but installed and now we are actually moving into phase and in this we would like some five. The first one would be move, don't until allow, unless allowed, to act as prohibited. A little more going approach in the institution government, I highly rewarded involved in it. The second one, and that totally applies when tendering versus auctions. Gradually make everything in the first step. Still, this is sometimes an appeal which is dishonorable, of course. One should do so, and they observe experiences from Germany and other countries, of course. Move a little, trial and error. That would be in play in the situation. This one would be there are institutions like our office and others that have to account it need to have some one-stop shop reach investors, which is not yet fully in place. We would like to have some additional infrastructure. Both area like line, substate capacities, dynamic side like reservation in the list, and trade, of course, still close as possible to your energy that you in the internet, although you know that, and we're really and that. And last, from what we see in other countries, large land that in particular is owned kind of state, so mostly policy and privatization, and a way to have simple, reliable use this land. Everybody is working ready, but these are this makeup, because as I encourage everybody to go, it's a great people in particular. Those are small steps to make it even. Thank you very much for it.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Hughes. I am my watch here and going toward rounding. You posted questions, and also here in the room, really benefit from engaging directly with colleagues when we end this in order to chat about these issues. Because we gotta hear the IP is the person you would feel like, I'll do it. I'll go to these things and code. Do reach out to EBRD head of the residents. You have Kosovo, you worked the past 4 years. You have played a role for EBRD sing of the Now, please give your reflections on that today.
Thank you very much, Jens. And might be on the distinguished panel. I think the conversation has been interesting, and I would be to Minister comments at the beginning, Kosovo being a young country, young, but also one that is flourishing. After a 5.3% contraction 2 years ago, last over 10% growth, and this year will a very positive growth dynamic, and it's supported not by the diaspora, in export and goods manufacturing. One sector I would like perhaps as an investment potential in Kosovo is sector. TC sector is flourishing right now. Kosovo, you can imagine, with an average population age 30 in the very highly popular in English, and this is a growth for companies to invest and take of new opportunities from. Over the years since I've worked there and headed the EBRD office, particularly proud that we have and played an important role in Kosovo transit, and that, of course, with Renewable, as we heard Felix, we were the financier for the 100 megawatt by Gora wind project. We also financed another 5 megawatts project, the first 2 utility scale in the country. And it's interesting, actually, so combined there are 100 megawatts. Really ambitious plan from the Minister of Economy to do 14 megawatts. So that's 10 times what we have. And I think it's ambitious, but also doable as well. I think there is a potential to get them, not least because Kosovo has friends and supporters from EMS, and really the US playing a very important in support, but also there are others as well. An example is KfW's together we are planning this solar district heating plant that Minnesota meant that this will enable 4,000 households connected to district heat in the capital, for starting that at end of the year. More, of course, is more private investors, and I think it was great to hear from Felix's experience of doing it. Really hats off to his team, because they were the first to come into the sector, that it can and that it is possible. And these, perhaps by Gora project, we commissioned just a couple of with the foreign minister on the hill. And this was really one of the proudest moment I would in EBRD over the last. Noli also mentioned the importance of energy efficiency, and that's absolutely, I think, to the energy intensive is 4 times EU average. It's a huge amount that not just my side, but also the demand of the over the last, we have invested 23 million euros through our economy finances to enable homeowners, residents to their into a month. We had that EBRD president, which I think visited Kosovo, on the importance that it has for the country. And with the Emirati, we signed a 5 million project to do energy in Pristina public buildings. After this session, in fact, so I would be able to hang around, we will have another signing for Israel, which is Kosovo's second city, at 5 million plus one from the to improve efficiency in schools, kindergarten, and health clinics. So these are really important investments and to show that enormous amount of. So I'm very optimistic after my in the country that it is a very good business, fast approaching a tipping point, a green transition with a huge range of investment, but also jobs in the sector. I think will really bode well to those young. Thank you.
Full. And I can tell you who have voted, poll it's 7, and percent have said yes. Gas prices should other countries to Kosovo learn from their example what you doing in energy. As we round up session, never estimate the power of youth. Whether you are engineer or you are policy keen to learn cutting edges and how they can be when users. Do Kosovo. To find the EBRD, go and search the internet Kosovo, and you'll find Kosovo resident and Neil. And words I would thank you and ask you to stay on. Be going now to mining different energy efficiency to rearrange the table bit here on